Hello, everybody, and welcome to the What's Appening podcast. I'm your host, Paul Murphy, and this season we're interviewing GPT creators. What's Appening is brought to you by 3 Advance, with a development team that turns prompts into products. And today I am really excited to talk to my fellow DC entrepreneur and agency owner, Marcus Finley. He is the founder of Fin Digital. As I say, he's an agency owner, he's a technologist, he's an AI enthusiast. And Marcus, you're now a GPT creator. Welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me, Paul. I'm really excited to talk about my GPT today and also really interesting things that are happening in AI.
Awesome. So tell me about the GPT first.
All right.
60 seconds. Give me the elevator pitch. Tell me about the ultimate grant proposal writer.
So the ultimate grant proposal writer is for people who write grants who struggle with the grind that it takes to actually write them out. And so with all my years experience reviewing, writing proposals, I simplify the process as simple as uploading the file that you're writing proposal for, and it generates it based upon best practices and standards. And as simple as that. And it also evaluates upcoming grants, if a grant's a great fit for your organization, all those things that you need to do even before you write the grant to just really prepare you for the grant writing process.
All right. So I got to be honest, writing is not my forte. And we come across clients all the time that are applying for grants, or better still, they want to apply for grants, but they're nervous and intimidated by the whole process. And then we have other clients, like big organizations, that are like, they nail this thing. They know exactly what they're doing. They hire people and staff that are applying for grants. How do you navigate this? And what are you bringing your your knowledge of the organizational side and then providing it to those the little people like me maybe who know nothing about it? Something about that.
Yeah, so writing grants are extremely intimidating, knowing that you're competing with, like you said, some organizations that have a huge development team or people who've written grants for years or decades. And so being able to be a small organization or medium-sized organization and know where to start or how to include the right components in your grant and make sure that you have a great win. And so what we took with the GPT is took my years of experience as a grant reviewer. So putting together review teams, reviewing grants myself, evaluating grants, and like my experience of what creates a standout proposal, as well as there's so many great places to pull best practices from. AI is perfect for that, where we're able to we trained our GPT on those best practices. I tuned it with all the preferences that I used to see as a grant reviewer in terms of things that I would like to have reflected about the organization in the grant. And so it really streamlines that, especially with the ability to just drop in the link to a grant. So if the grant's published online, be able to point that to your GPT or to the GPT, then drop the link to your website or any documents you have. And then from there, it can do the rest. And so it's really exciting to be able to simplify the process for people who are intimidated. And that was really an important part for the GPT for me.
Love it. So tell me this, did you go from product to prompt or prompt to products?
Actually, yes. I think for this one, I did reverse engineer a bit. So I took existing proposal that was a winning proposal. And so I took a winning proposal and I was like, ChatGPT, help me break this down. And then I combined that with a couple of great sources online that really work through the process of identifying the best parts of a proposal. And then I did a little bit of magic going to YouTube, pulling a couple of great transcriptions of how to build out a really great proposal and use those transcriptions to kind of build the knowledge base. So I used that to kind of quickly tune a really refined knowledge base to kind of build a library for the GPT to pull from in terms of different use cases, different writing styles, different approaches, depending if you're a nonprofit or a business looking to write a proposal for-profit grant writing. And so being able to provide a couple of different sources to pull from as people from different perspectives are interacting with the GPT.
And have you, I don't know if this is true or not, but have you done consulting? Have you helped people get grants in the past? Is this something that you've done?
Yeah, so I've actually, in a former life before being a technologist, I was a grants manager. Yeah. So at this organization, I reviewed hundreds, if not thousands, of grants in terms of from small, church-based, faith-based organizations to big NGOs, and to be able to review all different shapes and sizes, as well as part of that organization, a few others, I was writing grants myself to raise funds for the organization. So I've been on both sides, both writing and reviewing. And so kind of taking that experience and kind of combining all that together to really simplify the process for folks.
So in the past, would friends of yours have come to you to ask you for your help? And technically, are we saying that AI has now replaced you? Is that what we're getting at, Marcus?
I mean, I'm hoping it saves me in a lot of times, because there still is, and even with the GPT, it will get you 99% of the way. Yeah. But there's still some thought that you'll want to go through in terms of, because you're still telling a story. And the AI, even the way that we tune the GPT, is going to help with crafting the story well for telling the grant maker, the funder, here's the story, here's the impact that we're going to create. Here's the stats or the research related to the problem we're solving. Here's our program. Here's how we're going to solve it. Here's the cost. It's like you got to create this storyline of. It's very much a pitching pitching a business of, hey, there's a problem. You understand the problem. We understand the problem. We have the solution to fix it, and you just walk them through that story. And you do start with a compelling, story at the end or a quote at the beginning, but there's a really solid structure you can put into place. If those are there, and you're in a really good place for a winning proposal. Yep. Factoring all the other things that come into that too, if there's enough money and all the other things. And that's where also another part of the GPT, which is the research side, is like, is this a good fit for me? Which is, you can write a great proposal, but is the organization I'm writing a grant for in alignment? Is the problem we're solving in alignment to their funding priorities? And things like that, which play even bigger part into if I'll get the funding or not, which is, even before you write the grant, you should be doing that type of research.
Because I love this already. I have friends, acquaintances, and clients of 3 Advanced that need this GPT in their hands immediately. This is fantastic. I love it. So tell me, you know what? Let's go a step sort of outside of GPT world for a second. Tell me about the rest of your, you're juggling a lot of things. You run an agency. You're running training programs. Tell me about some of the other things you're doing in the AI space.
Yeah. So as part of this GPT, we're going to continue to expand upon this, which is, some in-person and virtual trainings around how to use the GPT, but other AI tools that help teams collaboratively work through the grant writing process. And so that's something we're going to continue to expand upon, is using this GPT as a way to educate the nonprofit community or even for-profit businesses looking to write grants, but how this could be the stepping off point for them to understand how these technologies can streamline their workflows. And so, yeah, we're developing a workshop to be able to support this. We're either at the organization or either ones that you can attend a workshop or boot camp either on the weekend or in the evenings to really be able to fine tune your skills of combining both learning about AI or increasing your knowledge around it, but also improving your win rate for your proposals. So that was a big part. But then also looking at this may also become a product. And so that's something we're really actively investigating, is like, can we take the GPT and the experience people are having with it and build a grant writing SaaS app that makes it easy for people to kind of drop in their own knowledge, take our best practices that we built in GPT and make it easier, almost like a Notion-based proposal writer.
Brilliant. No, I love that. This is the reason why we started this podcast, is that there are people out there coming up and trying things out using ChatGPT or Claude or whatever, turning them into something that's suddenly very, very valuable, and thinking, well, there's a lot of people that can take advantage of this, and can this become a product? And I know you're right in the heart of all of this.
Yeah. And I think it's like a way to kind of test product market fit a bit, where it's like, before we go off and invest time building a bunch of code or filing a boilerplate or building a subscription app, let's find out people even will use a free tool before we go off and build something. And so I think GPTs give you that capability of testing an idea or AI, focused app, and be able to at least figure out if people want it, try it, and be able to kind of rapidly iterate before you go off down the path of like building something.
Yeah, we talked about this before, the different stages, like, and I see this right now with AI and ChatGPT. The first stage is like, hop into ChatGPT, start practicing your prompts, create something. Then it's like creating a GPT for, like you say, to prove your concept. Then it's like a little bit further validation and build like maybe a prototype or a functional version that you can further validate and, even just convince yourself that it's worth doing before actually like hiring someone like FinDigital or Free Advanced to go ahead and actually build this full product out. It's the whole AI revolution is allowing people to go to test these things a lot earlier and a lot cheaper than they would have done before.
Yeah, and that's what I think is the beauty of AI, is that there's less interface and you're really focused on how people interact with however you fine-tuned your solution or your idea or the business concept you're trying to apply AI for. And so I think it's a really smart way to be able to test the concept out first before really, and allows you to experiment. So you can quickly make a couple of changes in your GPT, share it with one or two people in your circle or stakeholders that could be impacted by that problem. They give you feedback, you change it the same day, and you push it live. And so I love the idea of being able to iterate extremely fast and be able to get through those cycles pretty quickly.
Yeah. And I gotta highlight as well, you're not just a prompt engineer, you're not new to technology, you've been doing this hell of a long time, and you've pushed this AI stuff a lot further, generative AI stuff a lot further than them, hopping in GPT and hitting that create new button in the top right. Tell me a bit about how you've pushed some of these AI applications further than just a prompt, and some of the other things you're working on, some of the platforms you're taking advantage of, maybe how you're using your own engineering background to do more.
Yeah. So I've been in technology for over 15 years, from product manager to entrepreneur to founder. I've done all of the roles, CTO. I've been CTO for other venture-backed startups and managed engineering teams, 15 or more. So I've kind of seen it all. But I think when it comes to AI, I think there's a lot of really cool tricks that it can do. But I think what I've been really excited about is finding very practical ways that AI can solve problems, and working with partners or organizations that are really looking to like solve problems in areas that I feel like are the most right place for that tend to be repeatable processes, like things that you do, the business has to do over and over and over again. And there's an SOP or a structure way that you have to do it. AI is perfect for making it more efficient or either streamlining that process, because a lot of times it's the job that many people don't want to do. Even when it comes to grant writing, no one's excited to write grants. Like, no one's like, please give me a stack of grants to fill out today.
I don't know. I've met some people that really love grants.
There are, yes. Never even take that back. Yes. There may be other jobs. And then maybe that's just me. I was never excited to write grants. They're like, the grant's due in 2 weeks, get it done. And I'll wait 48 hours before the deadline to write the grant and like stress everyone. So, yeah, but ideally, with the whole help of AI, then for those who are in that, you have 2 weeks, 48 hours to write a grant situation, it's a little less stressful, or they're able to take off the plate. But I think that's where I think AI has huge value in terms of solving very practical, repeatable processes that are well structured.
You're speaking about this, like, the organizations using the use of AI for good. We're coming back off the back of a couple of podcasts where one, LA created a GPT for helping caregivers. She has a diabetic husband, and it's difficult, and the support is not there. There's so much information, but it's so hard to find it and get it when you really need it. So her diabetic GPT is also for caregivers. And then our most recent podcast with Raphael Testa, who used to be on this podcast and helped me get her off the ground. His GPT helps survivors of domestic violence. And it's incredible that these technologists turning their attention to a problem they've experienced or seen in their normal life and using tech to bridge the gap. And I think that's what you and I think have in common here. We are, we're the techies. We are having conversations with people who have some great ideas that done a bit of toying around, and we can actually take it that step further and make it happen. And I think for us, this is what we were born for, right?
Yeah, and I think it's going to be really exciting to see how for good organizations start implementing AI because that's particularly for nonprofit organizations, administrative costs are the things that they all are terrified of showing up on a 990. And so being able to reduce any administrative costs is huge for And so if you're able to introduce efficiencies in the way that they deliver care or deliver their programming, that reduces their bottom or the overhead, which means they can deliver more good to the world. And so I think there's going to be a really interesting opportunity as these tools get more cost efficient for them, or more people like us are able to work with them to be able to implement these tools. Because obviously nonprofits don't get technologists because they don't have the salary bandwidth to take on, top end engineers. So being able to figure out, and I work with some organization where they do like weekend hackathons. And so there may be really cool opportunities to figure out like AI hackathons for good, to be able to figure out how to incorporate these technologies to streamline some of the operations for these organizations, to give them the technology support they need to be able to live to the world.
Well, I think entrepreneurs, and certainly you and I, are like with the eternal optimists. There's a lot of cynicism about AI, and a lot of it's totally justified. Like it's scary out there, and there was a change happening that we've never seen before. But the potential is astounding. Like for again, reducing costs is like that's what the CFO cares about. That's what an organization that's watching their dollars and pennies are looking out for. But even just for ordinary people, to allow them to step into this world and be able to actually create something is astounding. It's opening up the world of creativity to so many more people, and I think that in itself is gonna just for fruit that we haven't even imagined before, and a lot of it positive.
Absolutely, and I think particularly, and this is something you had me thinking about my GPT, which is another important part for nonprofit organizations are their impact and being able to measure the impact of their work. And so being able to use AI to either build a research or a data set around the needs that they're looking to solve, and then mapping on top of that the work that they do. And so there is obviously a great opportunity for nonprofit organizations to take AI and be able to use that to better tell a data story in terms of the work and the impact that they do. And even to maybe even fill in some of the gaps that they may struggle with, because many of them don't have a data scientist sitting next to them in their nonprofit organization, but to have these technologies that can better help with telling better data stories, because that's what the funders want. The big foundations need to be able to communicate big impact and big numbers. So if your nonprofit can communicate that well, and not just the grant writing process, but also how you communicate about your organization, that becomes huge. And so I think these tools could really be a big factor in how these organizations can better talk about their impact in a clear way.
Even the whole the grants journey starts with applying for the grant, but then once you win one, if you're successful to win, you got to do the report. You got to get worthwhile. You may want to step it up and get second. I know for some of the a lot of some of the clients that we have gotten NSF, National Science Foundation, which is great. It'll give you $500,000 or $1 million to get off the ground and get something built and prove a concept. But if you prove that you're doing great work, and you can communicate that story very, very well, it means you're up for excellence, more funding, and more, just more opportunity, capability to fulfill the mission.
And what's really important, and this is one piece of the GPT that we captured here, is if you're applying for a funder, it's important to talk their language too. So they talk in a certain way about the work that they do or fund. You want to mirror that in the way that you write your grant. And so if they're talking about numbers of kids fed, or number of beds created, or homes created, or repairs done for a certain thing, and also how they communicate or talk about the work that they do, you want to write in the exact same language tone. Because one, there's someone on the other end reviewing your grant that needs to cut and paste what's in your grant into some larger report around the things they're funding. And if they only have to make a few edits to then cut and paste the work that you do, the impact that you do, it just makes it so much easier for them to be able to make a case. Because at the end of the day, there's independent reviewers or a larger review team. They're going to look at your proposal and say, here's all the things that we're measuring this proposal against. Does it meet the standards that we need it to meet to align to our funding price? And so if you're able to talk in all of their language, deliver the numbers in the way that they talk about their numbers, you're setting yourself up for a really high chance Great.
I love it. Well, Marcus, we're nearing the end of the podcast, but I have some other questions I want to ask you. One of them is around, I want to get your take generally. Like, where do you see, it's going to be a broad question. Okay. Where do you see AI going generally? And are there things in this space that sort of excite you, or you got any hunches? Are you going to pull back the curtains for us? Is there anything that sort of gets you excited about the future that maybe is like, your unpopular opinion?
Yeah, I think there's a big far off one, which is human experiences will be even more important. So as AI becomes more prevalent in so many aspects of our life, from writing to art to music, human experiences will become even more impactful. And that's even when we're talking about like doing in-person training. Things like human to human interaction will become more important, where there is no filter. I don't have to guess if it's a robot between me and the thing that I'm reviewing. I think that's going to be an interesting thing, how the world shifts to valuing human interactions, or even large scale human interactions, in ways that are much more coveted than I don't think we think about now. And even the mundane things become even more valuable. Like mundane human things could become even more valuable as AI becomes more prevalent. That's kind of the big one. But I think from a business perspective, it was interesting is seeing how what mid-market companies are growing quickly, and even through what's happening in our economy, some people are doing well, some aren't, but the companies in the middle are thriving, are starting to explore AI in a much more thoughtful way. And so I think there is a huge opportunities for businesses, agencies starting to either consult around AI, implement AI, that there is this sweet spot right now in terms of companies with budgets growing, looking to figure out how to implement AI, or their competitors starting to explore AI and they're trying to figure out how to outposition their competition around the implementation of AI in a thoughtful way. I think there's opportunities there. And I think there's this gap between Google and Amazon that they're starting to apply enterprise or mid-market like technologies that can solve these problems. There still is a need to consult people through the process. And so I believe over the next year or two, there will be a very thriving business around the implementation of AI that moves beyond just cool pictures or fun videos to how do we mature a process that makes AI part of our operation in a truly governable way.
Absolutely. I think that's why you and I are both doing our thing, right? Because we are finally, we're in a place that we can help people bridge that gap. And it's exciting, it's an honor. And as I say, keep people heading in the right direction and make sure, ethics, governance, all these things are not forgotten as well.
Yeah.
It's really exciting to be part of this movement. And I think it's hats off to you and the work you're doing over there. And from the moment I saw you, Mark, I first saw you speaking at DC Startup Week, and I was like, you blew it away. You blew it off. It knocked it out of the park. I think I caught up with you afterwards, and I've run into you a few times in the past. And I know we're thinking about working together. We got a couple opportunities. I hope this comes about. But I just want to say thank you so much for joining me on the podcast. It's been great. Before I wrap up, maybe, I don't know if you have any questions for me. Is there anything you'd like to know about, what we're doing over here or how I see the world?
I mean, I think I'm curious about, since you've been exploring all these GPTs, what have you found as kind of the resonating value that kind of string between them in terms of ones that are successful or ones that are, yes, they're really cool, but they haven't really hit it in terms of really attracting people to use it?
I think the vast majority are not going to be full products. I think it's a playground. I think it's an AI playground that everyone can play. So I think that's the most, that's the most exciting part, accessibility. But there are others, obviously, who've turned product into product that have actually created businesses out of it. We're speaking to the founders of Keymate that have created this a search memory that connects to a GPT, which uses the API built into ChatGPT to connect to their data store. And it's sort of making superpower in what you can do. So there are companies like that that are really, they're making money. They're making, it's actually happening. So there are cases like that. And then we're seeing from the flip side of things, and the next guest I have on the podcast is one of our clients that we're building out mobile apps for. And the work that we're doing in prompt engineering and some of the content generation, he's taking that and plugging it back into ChatGPT and creating a custom GPT to play further with it, to experiment more, but also to get early adopters.
Yeah.
So, the answer is multiple, endless ways. But I think the thing that spreads across everyone is like, it's a playground where you can experiment really, really easy.
Yeah. That's one thing I've been using it and building this GPTs is looking at them as almost like a lead magnet, ways to draw people into your world, as even just a way to just demonstrate your capabilities with AI. So I think it's really interesting. Like you said, it could just be a gateway into your organization or through the services you provide to just give people a piece of what you do through a GPT, and they're like, wow, this delivers some value for me. Let me go off to the full application to be able to hold it.
There's no doubt about it. Where we see on the GPT store is like future clients of 3 Advanced that we can help them bring their experiment or their prompts to reality, create an amazing user experience, because ultimately user experience and accessibility is what's going to make whatever they create actually successful and available to the masses. So that's super important for us as a company in the 3 Advanced story, but also even friends and family. You know how people's eyes light up when they're giving a demo and you're training people. So you see this all the time. You show someone how to use it, and then
you see the lights go off, or all the lights go off simultaneously.
So that's as much exciting to me as like the work aspect of it. It's like, this is my world of tech, which I'm always have been passionate about, but it's welcoming new people in. And I think that's underestimated by the cynics out there and by those who are seeing the negative side.
Yeah. And it's easy. And I think because we stare at this stuff every day, that it's easy to forget the magic of it the first time you really see it do something useful. And you're like, oh crap, this actually is like not just a fun tool, it is actually valuable and useful. And I think it's fun seeing people have that moment of like, oh, this is just a cool thing, to like, oh wow, this actually solved the problem for me. And oh wow, then it tends to be 2 reactions of like, oh wow, I'm about to lose my job. Oh wow, this could save me hours of work. And it tends to be like the same reaction at one of like, oh, I'm terrified, but oh wow, this is amazing. So yes, it tends to be, I love those moments are cool, but yeah, it tends to be a bittersweet for people.
The reality is that those who are even listening to this podcast or playing on the GPT store, they are so far ahead of everybody else, and they don't even know it. There's a feeling that I'm sure you wake up every day and you feel the same thing. I'm so far behind for what's happening. I'm straight up. I'm learning all the time. There's a stress on people like us to keep up. But the reality is, because we're experimenting, because we're pushing the boundaries of our own knowledge, we are so far ahead. It's all relative. And the more people that we can like put arms around their shoulders and bring them in, the better it is for humanity. The better it is for, the more opportunities we're going to provide those who don't have access right now.
Yeah. And I feel that's a big part, especially wanting to reach more Black and brown communities, communities that don't have access to AI. I mean, everyone has some access to ChatGPT and things like that, but also getting the education to understand how these tools are used and will be used. Just knowing that those communities will be directly impacted as the AI evolution continues to go. And so making sure underrepresented communities having not just access, but knowledge about these tools are going to be hugely, and something I'm really passionate about. And even that's some of the work I'm doing at Morgan State University, which is being able to teach communities that won't get people like us walking into them and showing them, hand-holding them through the process, like, here's how these tools work. Here's how they can help you see the things that you want to get done. Here's how they can help you with a job application. Just things like that, and being able to make sure all communities are being able to get a chance to take advantage of this huge opportunity. And so that's something that, to your point, is going to be really huge, because there are just people who have not really been exposed to the advantages of AI. And I think that's going to be big.
Marcus, we're working with a group they're based in Chicago. They actually met at Xavier University. It's called Pulse of Perseverance. It's 3 Black doctors they've started mentoring and scholarship programs. They have written a best-selling book with the same name. I need to get you over there right now as one of the mentors on the app, because you have a message to put across, and your wealth of knowledge, as you say, needs to be spread to everyone that looks like you and everybody that can appreciate the help. We gotta spread this knowledge around, and like the gateway is there. Let's move the gateway in the right direction so that everyone has a chance to walk through it together. So I'll be hitting you up about that.
Oh yeah, sign me up.
Awesome. Well, listen, Marcus, really, really thank you again for joining the podcast. If you want to tell people before we wrap it up where they can find you, where they can get in contact with you, take the floor.
All right. So again, Marcus Finley. You can find me on LinkedIn at Marcus A. Finley. And then you can also find our agency and more about us, as well as upcoming workshops, particularly around the nonprofit GPT, the ultimate proposal writer. So you learn how to use that, as well as other tools that can help you with your grant writing on builtbyfin.com. And so you'll be able to find more about our agency, but also about upcoming opportunities to learn more about GPT and to be able to take advantage of AI and grant writing.
Awesome. I love it. Thank you again. Thanks for everybody for tuning in. That's all from what's happening this week. The series on GPT creators with Marcus Finley. Podcast is brought to you by 3Advance. It's the apps and AI development team for startups. You can catch it on YouTube, Spotify, all the usual places. And also go to 3advance.com/news. Sign up for our newsletter. It's news and memes in tech. It's fun. It's educational. I'll keep you in the loop as to all that's happening in technology and this crazy world of AI we're living in. Thank you for tuning in. And Marcus, appreciate you joining the podcast today.
All right. Thanks for having me.